Hi, I'm Tom Steenberg. I'm the Dean of the Owen Graduate School of Management. And today I have the great pleasure of having Michael Mettee with me. He's the CFO of FirstBank. It's really delightful to have you with us today,
Yeah, thank
Michael.
you for having me, Tom.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with just a question about your background and your career. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm the CFO of FirstBank. Obviously, as you said, didn't start off on a kind of traditional finance track. Actually, when I graduated from college back in 2002, yeah, I wanted to. Job doesn't even exist anymore. I wanted to be a stockbroker, right? And so um, tried that. It was right after 9/11. Wasn't successful. Getting a 22-year-old to raise money, try to get money from from people right after 9/11 with the stock market crash. Went into some financial advising, didn't really work so well, and just walked into a job fair at old AmSouth Bank in Birmingham, Alabama. And really, because I had a background in trading or at least Series 7 type stuff, went into capital markets and spent the first 10 plus years or so doing capital markets activities, trading, and mainly around mortgage. And there's a lot of interesting stories there, which we don't probably have time to get into. But um, I actually ended up getting my MBA through the executive program at Alabama in about 2010, which really changed my career trajectory and pushed me more towards a finance, holistic management type of background. And so I joined.
Do you think that's something you would have done anyways?
Um, it opened my eyes. It really changed the way I thought about business, banking, and surprisingly, it changed the softer side of me. I was a really driven, hardworking person that had zero empathy, and so it was always interesting. I would always outwork people, but I didn't really understand how connections worked, how people worked, how leadership worked. And so that MBA really changed it. And a lot of people, when they get an MBA, think about, well, it's business and it's, and of course, I'm not a traditional, I had a finance background, um, but it opened up the HR side to me, the management, the leadership side.
All the people skills.
Yeah. And so it was very impactful for me. And I was at BBVA Compass at the time in Birmingham. Capital markets was in a transition from mortgage during the financial crisis. And if you remember, there was a financial crisis, then Europe had a financial crisis. I liked it so much I did both. And so
Impeccable time.
yeah,
Yeah.
impeccable timing. So I moved more into the finance world. And then, it was a tough time in the world economy. And I was working a lot of hours, had our first child. And so that changed perspective again. And I just happened to be on the phone one day with someone up here in Nashville, and they said, "Hey, First Bank's looking for somebody to start a capital markets area." Well, I didn't, I had never heard of First Bank. I've been at $120 billion banks, $160 billion banks, and here I am looking at a $2 billion asset bank in Nashville. Turned out that it was a really exciting endeavor. I kind of looked at it, I said, hey, I can build something here. I can take something, make it my own, start it from scratch. A little bit of entrepreneurial, which you also learn in MBA is, hey, this entrepreneurial thing sounds pretty cool. Uh, Even though I didn't have to take any you take career risk, but I
Yeah.
wasn't taking a whole lot of risk otherwise. So that was really exciting. And so we relocated up here in 2012 from Birmingham to Nashville. We actually live in Franklin. Um, and so I was part of the migration of our company from West Tennessee to Nashville, and we relocated our headquarters here in 2016. Same year we went public. So while I was doing capital markets type activities, which is commercial interest rate hedging and mortgage servicing rights hedging and mortgage hedging and selling and buying loans, we got to participate in going public, which was a monumental kind of project for somebody that's kind of early-ish, mid-career type. You're in your 30s. I guess that's early career still, right? And just I got to do things in a big way for a company that was growing that you don't get to experience at the
Yeah.
larger institutions. And so we built a really strong capital markets and mortgage area over a decade. Well, things change, right? And I kind of got back to saying, hey, I want to do something a little bit more towards that finance skill set. And so I became the CFO of our banking division in 2019. We were getting out of some of the non-traditional mortgage stuff. I helped sell some of those businesses, moved back into the banking side, working on traditional finance things. This may be surprising, but I think it's a lot of evolution of banks, but also any company is finance is not a skill or a function that most businesses have. They have accounting, right?
Yep.
They balance the debits and credits. They work AP, but they're not finance. And I'm a finance guy, right? I'm strategy, forward looking. I'm not an accountant. I have really good accountants, right, to shore that up. And so was going down that path. Well, COVID hits. It's early 2020. We just announced the largest merger in our company's history. We were about $6.5 billion. Franklin Financial out in Williamson County is about $4.8 billion. And I'm one of the only people at work, right? Because everybody's gone home.
Yep.
My wife said, Michael, you're better off in the office. But I talk a lot. I talk on the phone a lot. I pace. We've got a kid trying to learn from home. We have 2 other children by this point, both toddlers. So I got the exemption to go to the office every day. And I'm sitting in my office. And it's 4:00 on a Friday, and our CEO calls me. And I'm like, wow, this could be bad. Turns out our holding company and my boss, CFO, had taken a job in Texas. Known event. They were working on it for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, need you to be the interim CFO. It's 4:00 on a Friday. You kind of sit I'm kind of one of those people that just, if you ask me to do something, I'm going to do it as long as it's ethical and moral. And I said, sure, Chris, I'll do that.
I love that mindset. That's so great.
Well, some of it's being naive, right? But so I'll do it. And he said, well, we'll talk Monday. Think about it over the weekend about what that means. I pick up the phone and I call the guy that brought me into the bank, which his name's Wib Evans, been with the company 36 years. I said, Wib, what exactly did I just get myself into? Keep in mind this is April. We just hit COVID. We're announcing earnings in 3 weeks. I know the company really well, right? 10 years. I know every aspect, but I hadn't been involved with the accounting side or the investor relations and that type of stuff. All the things that a public company CFO is really responsible for, the K's and Q's and disclosures. And so they said, you'll be fine. We would talk through it. And so Monday morning, I hit the ground running as interim CFO. They searched, did a nationwide search for the best candidate, which I knew the whole time what we were doing. There was no preconceived notion that it was me or not me. In about October, they ran out of candidates, and they offered me the role. And so
you're on your way.
On my way. And it was, in the middle of the largest integration in our company's history. We actually did 2 mergers in 2020. We call them partnerships. And then we did a $100 million sub-debt offering. We did a lot of really great things. It was actually, I was still in charge of capital markets as well. We made $100 million in mortgage through a lot of those activities. And so it was a tremendous ride. And now it's really been the most exciting 3 years of my career. I mean, and it's more about community banking is so great because these things still matter. Relationships still matter. And I get to go out and I get to meet with customers. I get to be part of the Vanderbilt partnership. I get to go out and meet with all the business leaders in town, and I get to travel the footprint. And so it's really, really exciting and a great place to be.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really, when I was thinking of this career change and thinking about changing jobs, one of the things that got me very excited about Nashville was just the possibility of collaborating with all the businesses in town. I like to say that I'm within 2 miles, walking distance of dozens of corporate headquarters. It's so easy to be involved with businesses, and I love that we have a relationship with FirstBank. Could you tell us a little bit more about that relationship and how you see our partnership evolving, why it's important to FirstBank?
Yeah, I think our relationship and evolving relationship is a microcosm of Nashville, and that people are very welcoming. We like to do business with Nashvillians. People like to do business together. And even in some of the more like competitive environments, bank to bank or things like that, people are all very civil, all willing to help. They're going to compete. They want to beat you every day.
Yep.
But look, there may be somebody at a different university or bank that's like, hey, Michael, let me tell you how we would do this and see if that helps you. And so, the Vanderbilt partnership came about over the last couple of years, and we've obviously looked at Vanderbilt and said, hey, what a pillar of the community. I think as y'all were out, you've had a lot of banking relationships. You were looking for a community partner. We love to be associated with the Vanderbilt name, and it's more than just it started with athletics and the stadium, right? Hey, this is a great idea, naming rights. But as we got together and over months of talking about, hey, should we do this stadium naming rights deal? It really became, wow, we are really like-minded organizations, community builders, partnership, being good stewards of Nashville and the surrounding area. And now it's about, hey, what kind of relationship can we build and grow Nashville and the state and the Southeast? Y'all are a universal brand, right? Vanderbilt's known all over the world. And so that's really exciting for us. And so we want to be here. We want to be doing these things. We want to be working with your students, the professors, the staff. And, if some of the kids today, it's like, hey, how can I buy a house in 5 years? Where can I do an internship? You got new people on campus, and I've never had a checking account. How can we help that? Financial literacy, giving back to the community is also very important to both of our institutions. And so there's just a lot of community type stuff that really works well. And then
I love the civic-minded nature of your business and your organization in particular, and that mindset of helping the community grow by working together, by finding solutions to common problems, things where we can really make a difference here and all benefit from. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, we really feel like local matters, and for us that's local decision making, but being in your community, and so that when you come to see whomever at FirstBank that you need something done, that they can make a decision right there for you.
Yeah. And
then also when you see them at the grocery store or church or Second Harvest, that we're side by side working and bettering the community. And so that's very important.
So you mentioned earlier your mindset towards strategy and thinking about growth, and you've certainly been in a period that you find exciting around about growing FirstBank. I find the same opportunity here to be very exciting for me. As you look to the future and what's happening in industry, what are some of the interesting things, trends you're seeing in the industry? What are things that you might want to act upon within that background?
So 3 years ago, we sat down in our strategic planning meeting. It's late 2020, and we have a guy on our team who's worked with y'all's Wondery department. His name's Wade Perry, and he's our Chief Innovations Officer. That did not exist at FirstBank 3 years ago. The department, the job, doesn't exist in most community banks in the U.S. So we're a little bit out the risk scale there. We're a little bit ahead of where other banks like us are. And the reason for that is we looked at the environment around us, and we said, our bank was founded in like 1906, right? Chime, in 3 years added 14 million customers. All right, so let's just say we have, I'll call it 350,000 customers. So in 120 years, right, we got to 300,000, and in 3 years they got to 14 million. And what do they offer? A checking account. right? Or, it's not even, you'd say, well, that's not even innovative. I mean, but the ease of business, the financial technology, our children will never go into a bank branch. Likely, mine have to, but when they get older,
it's a family requirement.
Yeah, I mean, so they've been in and they enjoy it. But those things are changing. The dynamics are changing. Our business is based off of, which was very important, by the way, in March and the last couple of years, or last couple of months, FDIC insurance, right? That people bank with banks for FDIC insurance or for loans. Well, even lending has become commoditized in a lot of ways. People can get consumer loans through all types of financial technology. Commercial's a little bit harder. That's where these relationships in and around still make a lot of sense and people work through it. But for a retail customer, they can get generally bank products anywhere. And so we decided, hey, we better move forward on this. We better figure out how we can provide you the same thing that JP Morgan can, but the same thing that Chime can, or other technology, PayPal or whatever else, moving money. So that's what we've been doing the last 3 years.
And just make it easy for the customer to do business.
Make it easy to do business, still have the ability to talk to people. People still matter.
Yeah.
And I think, when you have a FinTech, when you have your phone and you can move money from A to B really quickly, I think that's all well and good, and that's how most of people prefer to operate, especially in the younger generation. But when something goes wrong, they don't want to be on hold for 3 hours. They don't want to be dealing with email back and forth and no human. They want to be able to talk to somebody. And so that's really still a value add for banks in general. But making it easy. So what we figured out is, hey, we better partner with people that are more innovative than us, that invested in this technology or that have invested in innovation. We're not developers, right? So let's go find really smart people like at the Wonder Center. So let's go find them and see how we can partner and who has good ideas. So we've done a lot of that. And honestly, we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. And traditional banking still matters too. In West Tennessee, we have lines out the door to get in our branches still, and it's exciting, and you still know everybody's name. But these communities, we talk about communities, it can be a region, it can be a market, but it can be a type. It can be professors at Vanderbilt. It's a community, and how do we serve them? And so trying to just rethink banking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I love the thought process that you have in that there's a lot of different ways to imagine how this business could go. And we're going to try and capitalize on the trends in terms of making it easy for people to do business for us. And we'll think about doing business in a very different way to capture those markets.
I think we probably, I would say, when companies make it hard to do business, you're probably going out of business. I mean, and I mean, nobody wants to do business with somebody that's difficult. And you have choices in banking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of choices, and now there's a lot more choices through financial technology.
Is there anything else that you're leaning into that you could talk about? I imagine you might have some things that you can't talk about too. So I'm not asking that.
It's interesting in banking in general, and this is more of a commercial tilt, is a lot of deposit flows, right, over the last 6 months have moved out of banks. Given the Silicon Valley crisis, people are really worried about who their bank counterparty is and what that looks like. Interesting dynamic there is they move a lot of money to financial technology firms. Why are they doing that? Well, it's ease of use. It's better. There's treasury management platforms that I think are very easy for startup companies or small to mid-sized businesses, that just more flexible than traditional bank treasury management products, meaning they can move money to CDs or T-bills or money market or operating accounts. Banks have not been that great at that. So we're working with a couple firms, actually a couple Vanderbilt graduates even, on partnering into how we provide better services through that. The interesting thing is, your company goes and says, hey, this is a really attractive offering. I'm going to go put money in this financial technology company. Well, what does that FinTech need? they need a banking relationship and then go put the money in deposits. So money's moving out of banks, traditional banks, into financial technology companies, and they don't have the ability to just hold it. So they're moving it back into banks. And so we're trying to figure out, hey, let's partner with these guys. Tom used to be our customer. Now he's over there. Well, this is a way for us to continue to build
that
business.
relationship. Yeah.
And it's a win-win, really. I mean, you're getting better technology. We're partnering with these guys, and a lot of deposit flows have left the banks. And so that's really top of mind. We look at a lot of partnership financial technologies to build efficiencies. AI really obviously a big topic. We're not. I'm in the AI test group, I would say. Because I say, hey, I've got to understand this. But we're doing some of the more traditional robotics and type stuff. We have some in-house people that do that just to process automation. But a lot of our innovation stuff is centered around, is this a product that we can, replace something we're doing that we can have some equity in? Does it help our communities? If it's a lending product, and are we good at it?
Yep.
And can we enhance that? Or is this something that we can monetize that is banking related? I mean, we're not out investing in EV technology or anything. So those types of things, we get a lot of early stage startup type stuff comes our way, because once your name's out there, you get a lot of it.
Yeah.
And so we as a team probably evaluate, God, there's probably been 100 in the last year of just people coming and bringing stuff. A lot of good ideas. You have no idea which ones are going to hit, right?
Yeah.
But it's exciting. It's just different than traditional banking.
So are you taking a portfolio approach for that in terms of managing the future, or how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, it's a process. And I'll tell you, we're early in it. We haven't done a ton of it, because we are still a community bank. It's a risk management, like core risk. So look, you don't just pivot. We set aside some capital and said, hey, let's look at what we could do here in this space. We made an investment, actually fairly sizable investment, in a company called Zippy Technologies, which focuses on manufactured housing loans, which in an affordable housing crisis, they provide technology resources. You can close your loan in like 7 days. The traditional MH space, it takes about 90.
Yeah.
So you get people in, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's a better process. We can then put some of those loans on balance sheet. And so we retain the customer, we get obviously yield there. So then on the smaller stuff, so that was a big investment. On the smaller stuff, it's more of a portfolio approach. And we partner with some technologists and some people that have done some funds and say, hey, where should we be on this? And it goes through a rigorous process.
Screening, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's rigorous, probably more rigorous than the team that's in charge of it would appreciate. They appreciate it, but there's a lot of governance.
Yeah.
We're at the end of the day, we are a bank.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. I have another question for you. Just listening to our conversation, just thank you for spending time with us today. One of the themes that has struck me about your comments, both in your personal journey and how you thought about your MBA and what it brought to you, sort of a transition in appreciating the people skills involved in your own career, and then as you're looking at the markets, you're like very customer focused and people focused. I was wondering if you have any advice, any leadership lessons that you'd share with our viewers that you've learned through your career. Like what advice would you give in terms of development?
Yeah, I touched one of them earlier. Is we were talking about hey, will you do this? I've always been willing to take the next thing on, and I think it's important that you play a little bit of the long game when you think about your career. And so many of us get caught up in, well, Tom's asked me to do this. Yeah, what's he going to give me in return, right? And not understanding, opportunity, right? So maybe, not maybe, was I qualified to be the CFO of FirstBank in April of 2020? Well, I didn't just say, sure, I'll do it, give me a raise and all this stuff, right? It's like, no, wait, first of all, it's gonna be a lot of hard work. You're always trading something off, right? Whether it's family, time, friends, but you got to embrace it and realize that sometimes things take a while to pay off, and I think that's happened for me. I think it's important. Our CEO says this all the time. It's important to manage your career. Right? I can't expect you to manage my career for me. So as you set out and you think about, hey, what is it I want to do? What is it I want to be? It's important that you take the reins for it. I think a lot of times I see people come to me and say, hey, how do I get to be the CFO of FirstBank? And I embrace that. I want somebody to come take my job. That means I'm doing things well. But my path is not your path. And so it's not a straight line. It's squiggly, and we can get you there. But embrace that. I mean, I think that's okay. You don't have to go get, go to this school and get this degree and then get this degree and then go to Big Four and then, you don't have to do that. And so let's figure it out, mentor.
I think you mean they should come to Vanderbilt.
Well, all that can happen in Vanderbilt. So absolutely. But I think you just, all of that is, you got to manage your career.
Yeah.
And then one of the other things is, and this is a mentality that we try to maintain, is the closest to the broom sweeps the floor. So there's not a single job I would ask any of my people to do that I'm not willing to do. If we're at an event and there's trash on the ground, let me see if I pick it up, right?
Yep.
If you need help finding your seat at FirstBank Stadium, well, help. Just look. Let's remember who we are. Remember what our parents taught us. Let's be good people. And there's no reason to not ever do that. And it just really always bothers me when people say, "Well, that's not my job." Well, I mean, I just don't. I don't.
It's sort
get
of all
that.
our jobs.
Yeah, I don't get that. I think that you build your team and everything around you, your company and your culture, by be willing to do the hard work, the easy work, the everything in between, and lead by example, and then hire really good people. That's the best way to be successful, is hire people that are smarter than you, that don't fit. If I hire a bunch of Michael Mettees, we're not going to be successful, right? You need people that complement your skill set, that are better at their jobs than you are at their jobs, and then you listen to them.
Yeah.
Right. I tell my people, I hired you so you tell me what to do, not for me to tell you what to do.
I love those pieces of wisdom. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Michael. I really appreciate your time. You've been very generous.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it, Tom.